the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
This is a topic that we've really looked through in the past, but it's been a little while, and I'm seeing it kind of lift its head in a different way right now, and that's video games. Love them, hate them, why not? I think that's often a question for a lot of people, and you never really hear sound arguments either way in one direction. It's either, you'll get addicted, it's not good for you, or it's too violent. And then on the other side, you hear, hey, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I don't get it. They're playing, they're not doing anything wrong. So let's look at that perspective. I grew up without video games. It was a big topic that we just kind of understood it's not what we did. On the rare occasion I started to pick them up, I would get so angry. I went, okay, well, this makes me angry. I should not keep doing this. And it was kind of an easy one for me. So when my husband and I were engaged, we started talking about video games, and he goes, I don't know what the big deal is. And then he came across Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. If you don't know Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, he is a former buck sergeant, paratrooper, Army Ranger, infantry company commander, and West Point psychology professor. And he has trained our law enforcement and armed services, both here in the United States and in other countries as well. He's worked with everyone from the FBI to Secret Services and their training. And he's studied and worked immensely seeing the reality of death, of protection, of killing. And he released a book called Assassination Generation: Video Games, Aggression, and the Psychology of Killing. It is riveting, and it really gives you the science of understanding what's happening with violence in our culture. And before you say, you're just going to blame video games, it's a lot more than that. So, Lieutenant Colonel, it is a pleasure to have you back on. Thank you for the work you are doing. I think a good place to start is you have, these pros and cons people throw out there to video games, but that's not really where this conversation is. If you're talking to a parent today who has a 9-year-old kid, they don't get the big deal. They're hearing tension on both sides. Video games has become a really comfortable thing for them because it entertains their child. It's a place for socialization. And maybe they kind of vet what video games their kids are using. What's your first thought on that just perspective that I think most people have today?
Praise God, and so good to be back on with you, Timmerie, and you wonderful listeners. Hey, I'm so glad you mentioned my book, Assassination Generation. Still a big seller decades later. And we talk in the book about, in 2005, the state of California overwhelmingly voted to regulate children's access to violent video games. California, Hollywood said, yeah, we're good with this. Silicon Valley said, no, we don't have a problem with this. Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor. Arnold signed the law. And the brain scan data that I put in the book, when this video game creates fight or flight hormones flooding through their brain, and we can show you the brain scan data, you've got catastrophic shutdown of left brain processing. Rational, predictive, empathetic processing is totally shut down when you're playing the video games. And so the state of California said, yeah, we need to regulate kids' access to this, like pornography or tobacco or alcohol or guns or automobiles. And the video game industry fought all the way to the Supreme Court. They said, we have a constitutional First Amendment right to sell any game to any kid at any age. You cannot regulate us. You cannot stop us in any way, shape, or form. And so they fought all the way to the Supreme Court, and 7 out of 9 Supreme Court justices, 7 old men that never played Pong in their life, overturned the California law. But what's really important is kind of the dissenting opinions of the 2 justices who really understood and who looked into it. So this issue has been resolved. And only when 9 old men were presented it, and they compared it to books where you select your own ending, and they had no idea what they were talking about. So you need to know what's happening here. Timmerie, I know you and I both have such a heart for abortion. And what kind of a hardening of the heart, what kind of a tragic mindset can it be that somebody would choose to murder their own baby within their body? But excuse me, that's the video game mindset. To kill, 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 to kill, kill, kill. And killing becomes the purpose and the objective of your existence for endless, endless hours. One of the other dangers, the desensitization is part of it. But I think a lot of people who played video games have suddenly found it's 4 o'clock in the morning. You got no idea what the last 8 hours went. And in just an hour, it's time to wake up and get dressed and go to work. Well, the video game industry does that on purpose. It's called an alpha state. Now, vast amounts of money has been spent. And then again, we talk in the book, one video game, Grand Theft Auto 5, the year it came out, made more money than the entire global music industry. One video game made more money than every rock concert on the planet, every musician, every CD, every download on the planet. So this industry has vast amounts of money. And they're always experimenting. They're throwing games out. They're seeing what works and see what doesn't work. And the goal is to steal your sleep. And when we start looking at sleep deprivation, nobody can deny the harm. So the thing to understand about sleep is sleep's a biological blind spot. Your body knows how to get enough air and water and food, but your body doesn't know how to make you get enough sleep. Any 10-year-old girl in a slumber party can go a night without sleep. She's not a nice person the next day. But try to get that 10-year-old girl to go all day long, all night, and all the next day without food. It would be a good thing. Fasting and prayer and self-discipline would be a good thing. But it's almost a physical impossibility. And yet, if there's visual entertainment, movies, video games, visual dynamic imagery, convinces our body that there's critical things happening and sleep gets pushed to the survive. It's a survival mechanism. Fight or flight hormones come to the fore and you steal their sleep. And the link between sleep deprivation and mental illness is overwhelming. Sleep deprivation will make you mentally ill. After 24 hours without sleep, you have impaired judgment equal to being 0.10 above legally drunk. So if somebody acted drunk all the time in the absence of alcohol, you call that mentally ill. On the second day without sleep, you're paranoid, you're aggressive, you're irrational. On the third day without sleep, you're schizophrenic. Any graduate of Army Ranger School, I will tell you, on the third day without sleep, I was seeing things and hearing things that were not there. You were literally indistinguishable from somebody with schizophrenia on the third day without sleep. So sleep deprivation, mental illness is overwhelming. And do your online search. But sleep deprivation and suicide to scare the daylights out of everybody. I don't think I've mentioned this on your show before. I never really talked about it. I had a nephew who was 18 years old. He locked himself in his room. The new video game came out. He locked himself in his room with a huge pile of snacks and sodas to play the video game. And on the third day, he killed himself. And we were just devastated. There was no letter. There was no trauma in his life. What was going on? What was just a video game and sleep deprivation? And we never put the pieces together. We never tied in this sleep deprivation, the desensitization, the violent ideation on the video game, and this sleep deprivation and suicide dynamic is so powerful. And it deserves a little more time. As you're sitting here right now, it is physically impossible for you to take your life. But alcohol inhibits the drive to self-preservation. Got all these problems, add alcohol, suicide becomes possible. So alcohol is very often a factor in suicide, but sleep deprivation works the exact same way. Sleep deprivation inhibits the drive to self-preservation, and sleep deprivation is almost irretrievably a vital part of the video game. So when the parents talk about, well, we just play for an hour or two, but you leave for the weekend or you're setting the groundwork for them to have the sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation is a key factor in traffic deaths, the number one killer of American teens. Suicide, the number two killer of American. Sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. And thus, this global epidemic of sleep deprivation caused by visual imagery, the video games, the binge watching shows is a key factor in the opiate epidemic. And so we've got three major causes of death in our children that have exploded. This has come out of nowhere. Teenagers, 10, 11, 12-year-old girls, suicide rate has tripled per capita in just a decade. And so suicides have exploded around the planet in spite of airbags and everything else.
Yes.
Traffic deaths are up. We see opiate epidemic, and all of it comes back to the sleep deprivation. And then we add the desensitization, the violent ideation.
I want to dive into that. Let's come back and discuss the desensitization, the lack of empathy that's happening, the violent dynamic. I think the big takeaway as you start to look at video games is brain scan data is showing something's off, very serious, when video games are being engaged in, and it's causing an immense amount of sleep deprivation. We've seen this rise in suicide and accidents among youth due to sleep deprivation. What's connecting all the dots? Well, we'll unpack more of this in just a moment with Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. He's the author of the book, Assassination Generation. You can find him online, Grossman on Truth, Grossman on truth.com.
That was the best of the week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the best of the week is on the Relevant Radio app, free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.